Okay, so now we are looking at our protractor postulate page. And what we're going to do is we're going to fold it in half, hamburger style.
Which way?
The hamburger. Remember, there's hamburgers and hot dogs? If you're not sure, it's also going to be the way that makes sense so that when you open this, you can see the protractor.
Which protractor, though?
Well, look, you can see both of them. All right, so then your protractor postulate. The first thing we're going to talk about with our protractor is the center. So the center we are going to call O. O. Okay, now the protractor can actually go a couple of different ways. The one that we have written down here, we can see that it's going to start at 0 degrees on the left side. So this would be 0 degrees here. And then it would end up at 180, which is a straight angle. Now, if you look at most protractors, what you're going to see is a double layer. See how I have numbers on the top and numbers on the bottom? Okay, so what I want you to do is we're just going to label a couple of these numbers. We are not going to label all of them. But you can look and you can see here, right, at 10, what number is with it? 170. Okay, and then at 0, this would also be 180, and we'll fill in this one too. Okay, so at 20, I would have 160. Notice that when you add these together, what would you get? 180, right? 180, 180, 180. And then we'll just do the first 3 of the next one as well. Okay, so on this side, 180 would also be 0. At 170, I would have 10. At 160, I'd have 20. Okay, and then like I said, you don't have to fill in more than that. Okay, so we're going to write what our protractor is on the top here. So you're going to see that the protractor postulate is actually very similar to the ruler postulate. And if you are looking for the protractor postulate in your book, they call it 1-3-1. But with the protractor postulate, what you're given is a line. So if you are given the line AB, and a point O, because remember that's our O here. Guys, stay with me, please. And this point O is on AB. All rays that can be drawn from point O can be put in a 1-to-1. So if you're given the line AB and a point O on AB, all rays that can be drawn from point O can be put in a 1-to-1 correspondence with the real numbers from 0 to 180. And it's 0 to 180 because those are our degrees. Okay, so basically this is like the ruler postulate because you're just lining up places on the protractor with a number. Just like on the ruler, you'd line up places on the ruler with a number. So what we do is we use this postulate. We use the protractor postulate to help classify angles by their measure. Okay, so why is the protractor postulate useful? Because that's going to help us classify what angles are using their measurement. Okay, so guys, again, just a reminder, what I have here, you should have on yours. So in the beginning, I'll kind of constantly remind you, make sure you're with me, but eventually you're going to have to make sure you're with me yourself. Okay? If you are all done writing that down, you can go ahead and you can flip up your protractor postulate. And then I gave you the first sentence there, so there's going to be very little writing in here. We're actually just going to be doing some interpreting. Do you guys need more time with the protractor postulate? On the front? Speak now, forever hold your peace. Okay, so the measure of an angle is the absolute value. You can either highlight or underline. It's the absolute value of the difference of the real numbers that the rays correspond with on a protractor. Okay, so the absolute value of the difference of the real numbers that the rays correspond with on a protractor. So the reason why I highlight some of these things is so we can think about what these words mean. If we see absolute value, what we're thinking is we have something that's always positive, and then we think of our absolute value signs. And yesterday we talked about how the absolute value is the distance from 0. Okay, so it's the absolute value of that distance. When you do the difference, that means that you're going to do what with the two numbers? When you're finding the difference, you're going to subtract them. Okay, so when we see difference, we think, okay, I'm going to have to use subtraction. And then the way that we pick these numbers out is we are going to find the numbers that the rays correspond with on the protractor. So for our next example, it says to find the measure of each angle, and then we're going to classify them as acute, right, or obtuse. So the first one we're going to look at is BOA. So we have BOA. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to mark this BOA, and I'm just going to put that this is part A here so we can look at that pretty clearly. And then I'm also going to highlight so that we can focus on that one only. So there's a couple different ways that you can do this. So like we talked about, there's two sets of numbers. Okay? There's a set of numbers that are on the top. There are a set of numbers that are on the bottom. Now it doesn't matter which one you use, it just matters that you use the same one for one problem. So if I'm looking at BOA, okay, I'm right here. B is at 40 or 140. You can choose whichever one you want. I chose to go with the lower one, which is 40. Okay, so I have 40 here. A is at this line. Now I don't have any degrees written here, which means this one is what? 0. You can see it's right next to 10. So then when I do my subtraction, I would just do 40 minus 0, which is just going to be 40 degrees. And if it's 40 degrees, Grace, what kind of angle is it? Acute. So that would be your classification. Okay, now you could also use the top row. So the top row, this would be 180, this would be 140, and you could also do 180 minus 140, which again would give you 40 degrees. Okay, so you can pick which one you'd like to choose. Okay, so now I want you to do the same thing for B and C. Okay, so when you're doing DOB, what you want to do, again, is just figure out if you're going to use the top or the bottom. So D is here. You're either using 20 or you're using 160. Okay, B is on this side. You're either using 140 or you're using 40. Okay, for this one, I decided to use the top. So I have 40 and I have 20. And what sorry, I don't have 20. I was looking at my blue line. This is going right in between 10 and 20, which is where? 15. So I'm just going to write that here. Okay, this is going between 170 and 160, which is where? 165. Good. Okay, so you can choose, like I said, I'm using the top, which means I'm doing 140 minus 15. When you're doing that, things like that you should be doing in your head. If you do 140 minus 10, what do you get? 130. If you do 130 minus 5, what do you get? 125. Okay, so it might be hard to do minus 15, but if you're subtracting by 10 and then by 5, that might be a little bit easier. Okay, and then because it's greater than 90, it will be obtuse. And then for our last one, we have EOC. This is another one that lines up with 0. Now, when you're choosing what this is going to be, you can see here this is in between those two. So in between 100 and 110, in between 80 and 70. So if you're deciding what you should use, right, should you use the 105 or should you use the 75, there's a couple different ways you can think about it. First, if you're using 0, is 0 on the top or the bottom here? It's on the top. So then I should use the number that's on the top. So 105 minus 0. Another way you can think of this is, can you see that this angle is larger than 90 degrees? Yes. So then you know right away that this could not be 75 degrees. Okay, it has to be larger than that. All right, so then for your homework tonight, what I want you to do is glue this into your notebook. You are probably going to have to glue it sideways, just like I did, on a new page. In addition to that, I am going to give you a chart that you are going to cut and paste those pink sheets onto. Okay, and then you're also going to complete those problems from your bookwork.